Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to a video for One Too Many Rabbits. This is a interesting little card game that's going to use some dice rolling, involving some numbers and mathematics. Hopefully that doesn't turn you off already. It's kind of a fun learning type game. It says ages +7. So lots of really cool details, some really cool bunny rabbit art on here too. But it's 1 to 4 players. We'll kind of go through how this is played here, but let's look at the back here. So it says kids learn math, strategy, probability, and decision making. Obviously, anyone of any age can play this. There's 100 cards, 3 dice, and rules to play. So rabbits of Wiggins Farm have been running rampant for far too long. It's up to you to round them up and toss them back into their rabbit hole. Choose to roll 1, 2, or 3 dice to knock out their numbers, but watch out. These rabbits are tricked and will find all kind of ways to hop back into your hand. So what we're going to get is the objective of the game here. It says, be the first player to put all the rabbits back into the hole. In other words, be the first player to get rid of all the purple numbered rabbit cards in your hand. If you have any green, wild, plus, minus, or piggyback cards in your hand, it doesn't matter. So, we're going to have, here's the back of one of the cards, too many rabbits, 1 too many rabbits. We're going to have purple cards, which are going to have a couple of different things on here. Obviously, I have a picture of a rabbit. It's going to say the number, have the number 1 on there, has the word 1 on there, as well as has a little picture of one little rabbit on there as well. So it's kind of multiple different ways to, kind of help everyone learn. So as an example, then if we show like a number 4, now we have a 4, the word 4, and then 4 different things. So you can have, again, use this as a learning tool as well as just having a fun little quick card game. This can be a fun thing to play beginning of your game night or in between games or a cool down game, family gatherings. But again, it's also kind of a little learning tool. So how it works, each player starts with 14 cards, numbered 1 through 12, a wild card, and a plus-minus card. To get rid of rabbits, choose to roll 1, 2, or 3 dice. We come with 3 green dice. Use the number on the dice to individually or combine them to create numbers you need. If you cannot account for all the numbers rolled, you must draw a card. You may use some of the numbers rolled in order to discard rabbits, but if there are any unused number on the dice, you have to draw a card. So basically you're trying to get rid of your cards by matching numbers to the dice. But if you can't, then you have to keep drawing cards. You're only going to draw 1 per turn at most, but if you can't at least get rid of 1, then you're going to be stuck. To win, be the first player to get rid of all your purple number rabbit cards. Beware of other rabbit tricks. Your opponents may do things that cause new cards to hop into your hand. You can do the same to your opponents. So for a sample turn, when you're going to play, you may do one of the following actions. You can roll the dice. Choose to roll 1, 2, or 3 dice. Roll numbers to determine the number of cards you discard. The number of cards may be combined anyway, whereas numbered rabbit cards can only be combined, added together, or subtracted if you have a plus-minus card. And there's a second option. Before we do that, let's look at how a roll works. If a player chooses to roll a dice, roll 1, 2, or 3 dice, get rid of numbers you have rolled. For example, if a player rolls all 3 dice and the numbers are 1, 3, and 5, that player may toss their cards by combining the numbers on the dice in any variety of way. So they could do a 1, a 3, and a 5. They could do a 1 and then add the 5 and 3 to do an 8. They could add the 1 and 3 to do a 4 and do the 5 separate. They could add the 1 and 5 for a 6 and do the 3 separate. Or they could add all 3 together to do a 9. So a bunch of different ways. Why wouldn't you always roll 3 dice then might be the good question. Because if you can't match all your numbers, maybe you have too low of numbers or you don't have a lot of cards, then you're always going to have to keep drawing a card. On the opposite hand, if you only roll 1 die every time, you're not going to be able to get your higher numbers rid of because you can only roll up to a 6, so anything higher than 6 you'd never be able to get rid of. And you also take a lot longer to get rid of stuff. Ideally, 2 is probably a good one in the middle because then you might get, because right here you could get a 3-5, a 1-3. You have a little bit more options. Once a player tosses a rabbit cards into the hole, their turn ends playing the passive player. If there are any numbers unaccounted for, that player must draw one card from the draw pile. So, although I couldn't explicitly find it stated anywhere, I looked on Board Game Geek, I looked up their how to play video, I checked online. I went to their Kickstarter and dug through the comment section on there as well. I couldn't find anything specifically said how to do it, because it does say if there are any unaccounted for dice, you must draw a card. So from my assumption is that the way which I'm understanding this, and I might be wrong, is if you roll 3 dice, and I have these, if I only have enough to cover the 1 and 5, so either go 1 and 5 or a 6, but I don't have anything I could use the 3 for in any combination with anything, then I can still get rid of the 6 or the 1 and the 5 if I have those two, but I have to then draw a card. So if you can't use the combination of all 3 dice in some form, you have to draw a card, but you're still allowed to discard stuff. It's not, if all 3 don't match or all 3 aren't used, you have to get rid of them. Alright, our second option we can do is Rabbitage. Rabbit Sabotage. Commit an act of Rabbitage against another player by giving them 1 card from your hand. If you decide to Rabbitage, you do not get to roll dice. You must draw 2 cards from the draw pile. You never know, 2 cards you draw might help you or they may not. So why might this ever be a good idea? Again, it's all based on luck and luck and stuff maybe, but you might use it to either get rid of a really high card. Let's say you have an 11 or 12. It's going to be harder to maybe roll an 11 or 12. Even in combinations of some numbers. Same thing on the opposite end. You might decide to get rid of a 1 or a 2. Might be harder to roll just a 1 or a 2 die. But since you can use combinations of the dice, it's hard to say that for sure. But yeah, you might do that. Or if you have a bunch for some reason, somebody else is kept giving you other cards, and now you have 3 6s. You might opt to give away another one of your 6s to somebody else. So there are interesting ways to do that. There are a couple of rabbit tricks. A rabbit trick is a lucky roll of the dice. When one of the rabbit tricks described below appears on the dice roll on a turn, the opposing players must draw 1 or 3 cards. Snake in the grass. Whenever a player rolls 2 ones or snake eyes on their turn, all opposing players must draw 1 card from the pile. So this is an additional way, other than you just not getting your correct stuff on your turn, you might have to draw additional cards. And then have a nice triple. Whenever a player rolls 3 dice and it's a 3 of a kind, triple of any number, all opposing players must draw 3 cards. So this is another way. So by rolling 2 or 3 dice, you might force your opponents to also have to roll once. If a player rolls triple once, counts as a triple, not a snake, guys. Alright, so then there are a couple different card types. We have what every card does. Numbered rabbit cards. Numbers between 1 and 12 represent rabbits for you to hold in your hand. First player to discard all these from the game. Wild cards. So they're going to be green. These guys are purple. These guys are green. Wild cards act as any number you want. They may be used as a plus. They may not be used as a plus, minus, a piggyback, or a place your bet. They only can be used as numbers. Piggyback cards. So these are special ones. The piggyback card gives you the chance to piggyback on another player's roll. To use this action, lay it down and call it piggyback before the opponent rolls their dice. You may use a number on the dice as if you had just rolled them yourselves. Discard any corresponding numbers in your hand. So, if your opponent rolled this hand and you played piggyback before, you could get rid of any combination of those cards. The upside of this is, unlike your own roll, you do not need to draw a card if you cannot account for all the numbers, and there's no penalty for piggybacking. So, even if you can't get rid of a combination of these, you can only get rid of 1 or maybe 2 of them, you don't have to draw a card. If you can't match any of them for whatever reason, you just lose the piggyback. No big deal, I guess. We have plus minus cards. This is where some more of the math kicks in. So not just adding the dice, but we can add and subtract cards. Use a plus minus card between 2 number cards to form an equation that equals a number you need. This can be used to add or subtract. Discard after use. For example, if you have an 8 and a 3 and a plus minus, you can choose to use it as 8 plus 3 to make an 11 card, or as a minus. 8 minus 3 to be a 5. So basically you're taking these 2 cards in that and you're turning into one different number. So this could be a great way for you to get rid of these 2 cards as an 11 or a 5, adding then the combination of your dice. So if we flip back to this example, you could use those to combine to add up to the 5, and then if you still have a 1 or 3, or if 5 if you also have a 4. So that'd be a great way to do it. Adding up to 11 would not help you on this one. But then again, that was an 8 and 3, so you could always get rid of the 3, the 8, or the 3 down here. But then it'd be depending if you have some of them other numbers. Just gives you more options to do stuff. And then the final special card is place your rabbits. Place your rabbit cards must be played as soon as they are drawn. If your player is in the middle of a turn, wait until their turn is complete before proceeding. All players must place a bet. Place a number rabbit card from their hand, 2 to 12, to guess which number will appear on the sum of 2 dice rolled. You can't use a 1 because if you roll 2 dice, you'll never get a 1. You'll at least get a 2. You could get up to 12. When someone calls place your rabbits, play pauses. Each player chooses a number card from 2 to 12, places it in front of them. Players holding the only number 1 cards are exempt from the bet. Once everyone has placed their bet, the player who drew the card rolls 2 dice. The winning number is the sum of the total roll of both dice. Individual numbers that appear on the dice do not count as a winning bet. So, if they rolled and they got a 5 and a 2, you'd have to count that as a 7. So now you're looking for someone that has a 7 card. Each player who successfully bet the winning number may discard the card to bet. All players who unsuccessfully bet must keep the card they bet and draw 1 card from the pile. Then player resumes. So this is an interesting other way to either potentially force other people to draw cards or to get rid of your own cards. The only thing that's kind of odd about this is because they somewhat make it sound like you have the options, like, well, anyone who bet, which says everyone has to bet. So that's where it's kind of a tricky thing, because it says, all players who unsuccessfully bet, okay, or who successfully bet, but everyone who has placed their bet. So everyone has to do it, so it's forcing you to do it too, and it's a random die roll. So this might hurt you, might help you, might hurt your opponents, might help your opponents. It's kind of a crapshoot card. Luckily, you don't have to ever play it if you don't. You don't have to get rid of it to end the turn. There are also solo rules if you want to play solo. It plays pretty much the same way. I'm not going to read through all of these. Kind of hold it up if you want to pause it. It's basically you're just creating a random hand of 6 cards for the AI or the computer to play against. And then they just have to try and remove their cards. The same idea. No rabbiting. And they always roll 2 dice. Yeah, so a very simple, quick game. You can go to their website, 3archersgames.com. I think it was 3archersgames.com. It's the 3 Archers. You can go look them up, or the game. If you want, it does have a how-to-play video. It's basically just walk you through what I just talked about in the instructions. So let's go ahead and take a look at our cards. There are 6 copies of each card. So this is another question that came up a lot while looking this up was, how do you make the actual play deck or the draw deck? What you are going to do is once each one of the 4 players gets their set of 12 cards and their wilds and pluses, every other card makes up the deck. So this is why you can't play with 5, 6 players. You could play with 5 or 6 players, but if you play with 6 players, that means there won't be any cards left in the deck. If you play with 5 players, there's very few cards. Because you only have a set of 6, so this is going to give some extra cards in the deck for drawing. The only other way you could you could do it would just be first couple of turns, you're only going to be able to draw cards until some cards get discarded, and basically as cards get discarded, that's going to be a new draw pile. If the deck ever runs out, that is also you reshuffle and make a new draw pile. Alright, so we have all these cute little rabbits we're going to go through. So we have the ones, which are like the night rabbits. They also have the number somewhere on their thing as well, so they have a little extra 1 on there. And then they have other little significant things, like he has a 1 carat, 1 carat. So now we have 2. Even though the outside of the cards are different colors, like these are tan, these are purple, it's talking about the purple numbers. So we have 2, who has a 2 for a peace symbol. He has a Roman number 2, 2 daisies. He has some numbers. Dos, Zewe, Gux, 2 on his hat. Does he have a Roman numeral on his? Did I not notice that? I don't see one. It might not be a common thing. It might just be on him. But yeah, it's kind of, you have all these different things. This is also, again, can be a learning thing. You could, if you're playing with maybe a younger kid or you're trying to teach them, you could be like, oh, can you point out all the instances of 2 on him? So like, oh, a 2, a 2, a 2, you know, 2 eyeballs maybe, 2 teeth. He has 2 little buck teeth, 2 little mustache lines. So kind of really neat to get some of that stuff. So for 3, we have a scuba diver. So he has 3 points on his trident, 3 lines there. He has 3 whiskers, 3 dots. The number 3. He has 3 on his things, 3 fish, 3 bubbles. Lots of different instances there. I don't know if this word means 3 at all. I don't know what word that is, so I can't say that. For number 4, we have an archer rabbit. There's 4 lines on his pocket. Each one of these little lines on here look like they're 4. He doesn't have 4 nearly as much as the other guys did. So interesting. But yeah, still neat. We have 5. We have a James Bond bunny, who's actually holding his own card there, which is kind of fun. But yeah, he has 5 buttons on his shirt. He has 5 lines. He has 5 carrots on his stem. Yeah, so kind of neat. Yeah, some of these have a little bit less numbers than the other, but we have a mad scientist. There's a badge card. 6 on his vest, 6 dots, 6 hairs on his head, a 6 beaker. Beaker looks like the number 6, which is cool. We have number 7, who's a painter, looks like Bob Ross, who has the 7 colors on his painting canvas thing, his board. I don't remember what that's called. But yeah, it's like the only version of 7 on there. I might be missing some. There might be some other interesting ones in there. Alright, we have number 8, who has an 8 ball. He has the balls on the bottom add up to 8. He has 8 dots on his carrot pool stick, 8 stars, 8 stripes, 8 on the cue stick. Yeah, so interesting little things there. We have number 9, who's Gopher. 9 stripes, Neef. So I'm guessing that's 9 in another language, maybe German. Not for sure. We have number 10, the bowler. He's got some geeks and dicks. He's got some 10s, X's. He's going a lot of strikes there. Cool. We have number 11, who's a ninja. Who just has a lot of 11s based on, like, up and down, like 11, 11, 11. They could be mistaken for 2s. It's just a little trickier one. And then finally we have rabbit number 12, who looks like he's the Easter Bunny. He's got like 12 eggs. There's 12 in his carton. Probably 12 buttons on there. Alright, then we have our special cards. So we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 copies of this plus or minus. So 1 for each player. So 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 minus 2 is 2. So there's a little Einstein looking rabbit. A little plus and minuses on his sleeve there as well. So this works for plus and minus. Then we have, this is stuff that was added to the Kickstarter campaign, but I don't think their Kickstarter could just extra stuff was added later on. Is we have a black and white plus and minus, you know, the James Bond looking guy. So yeah, you get 4 extra there. So this is kind of fun because that means when you're playing, you're gonna potentially you could draw an extra plus minus card. Which might be a reason to draw extra cards. By rabitaging someone, you might draw some of these. You also get, each player also gets a wild card. So we have 2 copies of this wild card, the old Western one. We have 2 copies of the Terminator Cyber Bunny. And then we have a David Bowie wild one. We have a Wizard of Oz Fairy Tale Guild one. And then we have a Honey Rabbit. So those are, so yeah, if each player gets 2, you'll have 3 extra wilds that are mixed up in the deck as well. And those are all the cards you would have in your deck. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 versions of the piggyback. You do not start with these, so this is again a reason you might want to draw cards. So you potentially get these piggybacks. And we have 6 copies of the Place Your Rabbits, which just have all the numbers. So that's all the different cards. Very simple, very clever, quick game. I don't think this is going to be something that necessarily, like, most people are going to break out every single game. Like I said, this could be a fun little, hey, break this out with a family gathering. Everyone's sitting around chit-chatting while they're waiting for the food or after the food is done. Instead of playing, like, your typical, like, Uno or games like that. This could be a fun little game you play. You don't have to be focused too hard on doing it. Or again, you're playing your game nights. Game to start off while people are still arriving and getting ready. A couple of people could throw this out. Like, you can, it's only gonna last 10-15 minutes or whatever. Or if you end up quitting early, it's not a big deal. Like, you can just stop and count how many cards everyone has at that moment. Things like that. So yeah, very, very fun, interesting little game. Or you could then play it during games you're setting up for your next game because it doesn't take up a lot of room. Things like that. Yeah, so very cool. Inside the box, just want to do a quick show off of this. So here's the inside of the box. You have a little spot for the dice, spots for the cards. There's some extra room in here, and I'm wondering part of that was because there was some extra foil versions for the Kickstarter, so they want to maybe make sure some extra room. Plus, these games also just have to sometimes have certain box sizes. But one thing to note is there's probably not enough room in here to put sleeved cards. They might fit in left to right, might be kind of tight. Up and down, they probably fit. I don't know if you'd want to sleeve a game like this. That's kind of up to you, I guess, depending on how much you play. It might not even be a terrible thing for kids, so they don't wreck them as much, but that's cool. So that is One Too Many Rabbits. Fun little tricky card game you can play. Use it for a teaching thing as well if you'd like. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you find other games like this or other things you'd like me to check out, hit me up in the comments to let me know. Maybe I'll pick them up to see what they're like. See you guys later. Bye.